Greetings, Internet, and welcome to Aaron Plays, and I hope you're doing fantastically well. Okay, this is actually recorded after I've actually done what's coming next after my blurb saying hi, because I shot a video which was the last previous episode and this part all combined. So I do my recordings on Zoom, took it down to actually work on it, and found it was 45 minutes long, and I thought, I wanted them to be 20 minutes. So what I did was I split the video and done a new intro and outro for each part. And that's what you got here. Me going, hi, even though I've actually recorded, if you know what I mean. I've actually done the outro before. Yeah, well, anyway, let's go to the map. Hit the like if you don't enjoy what I do. Hit the like if you don't enjoy what I do. You know, it all helps me anyway. And yeah, if you could subscribe if you enjoy really what I do. And then, of course, any comments much appreciated. But let's go down to the map and see what's going on. I'm going to zoom in and focus on that brigade and go into quite a bit of detail of what is actually on these counters, information-wise, because quite a lot of you might not have played any of these systems. So each of these units is representing a regiment. Under Gladden himself, who's the leader, there is an artillery battery. So what do all these numbers mean? Okay, so first of all, at the top there, you see a coloured bar, green, green. Gladden's also got green. If you go back to his actual divisional commander, Withers, though I know he's not activating under him at the present moment, he's also green. So Jane Chalmers is the second brigade of that division. He is also green, but the colour here at the bottom is different to Gladden's. And notice all Gladden's units have yellow in that position there. So the divisional colour is green. The brigade colour is yellow. So we know that all these units here are part of Gladden's brigade. So it's easier from a visual point of view to know who is in command of what. Okay. Then on these numbers at the top here tells you the name of the particular regiment. As I really to understand, AL is for Alabama. So it's the 26th Alabama Regiment, the 25th Alabama Regiment, and so on. So there seems to be quite a lot of Alabama there. LA? Not sure. I'm not brilliant with my American geography and science. Let me check that up. And now all you Americans are probably saying, hey, why didn't he know that? Louisiana. So that brigade is predominantly from Alabama, but there is one regiment, the first regiment for Louisiana. So that's what those there. Down the little side, these little dinky numbers here, that tells you, if you can't see colours, you can read numbers, so you're colourblind, I don't know, but it tells you which leaders are attached to. And those 3 digits, you've got the brigade. So this would be the 1st Brigade of the 2nd Division of the 2nd Corps. Okay, so Withers has only got 2 numbers on him. He's the 2nd Division of the 2nd Corps, and there's Bragg, the Corps Commander, whereas Hardy is the 3rd Corps Commander. So these guys are working in unison with Hardy at the present moment. So that's those little numbers there. 1st Brigade, 2nd Division, 2nd Corps. Yes, it gets my head around it. Right. Next, you've got these little here letters. M stands for muskets. They are armed with muskets. Some units have got an R on them, such as this one here. That stands for rifled muskets. These you're playing smoothbore muskets from similar to the Napoleonic Wars. Then you've got the main three numbers at the bottom. The first one is its strength, how many men that is in that actual unit. And each one of those is it 100? I think it's 100 men. Each strength point is 100 men. So that's 900 men in the 26th Alabama. Now that felt wrong, didn't it? No, it's not. Sorry. Each strength point is 50 men in either infantry or cavalry. So that's actually only 450. I thought that's big. So yeah, sorry, my bad. So each strength point is 50 men, either being it foot or cavalry, and each gun, and let's move Gladden out of the way for the moment. So that number in brackets there is the amount of guns. That's 4 guns in Robertson's battery. Let's put Gladden back on there. Okay, and remove the move marker because there's a move jet. Then, so there's 450 men there, there's 300 men there, and so on. The middle number is their cohesion rating. How good the unit is. The higher the number, the better. If it's got a G in front, which this whole brigade seems to have, that means they're green. They've not seen action before. And there are special rules that come into effect when they're green. So you've got some units that will have just the number there rather than the G, and the cohesion is not different. They still make the same test, but there's extra tests that green units have to do, especially in this battle. The units were particularly brittle, as we'll see as we go along. So a cohesion rating of 6 is about average. 8s and 9s, you're looking goods. Got some 7s over here, they're fine, and then you've got some really abysmal ones, 4, because you have to roll equal to or less than to pass the test. Any test that you need to do. So a 4, bit dodgy. Okay, and then the last number is its movement allowance. So they've got 6 movement points. Okay, so again, looking at the artillery there, we would Gladden out the way again. Cohesion of 7, and notice it's not green. I don't know if any guns are green, but anyway. And then it's got 8 movement allowance. Yes, it's got a higher movement allowance, but it's going to pay a lot more for moving through this through any terrain. Also, for the guns, that N is a type of guns that they are. Those are called Napoleons. They're smooth bores. Yeah, then you get some guns that are rifled and such forth, depending on the type of gun they are. So that's on the front of the counter. On the back of the counter, so let's just flip one over. It's pretty much the same thing, but this is when the unit is disordered. Notice the little D there. Again, the same size, muskets. Movement is dropped a little bit. Also, the quality's dropped. So let's just flip that back from G7 to G5. I think in most games of the series, they only drop 1 point, but it looks like they're like I said, these armies are brittle. They're dropping 2 on the disordered side. So if a unit fails a test, and we'll go into specifics of tests when it occurs, then they get flipped over to disordered. If they take another and fail another test, there's what's called a second disorder table, and that's where things can rout, take extra step losses, and such forth. So yeah, those are the counters there. So the last counter we've got to look at is Mr. Gladden himself. Okay, so he's got quite a lot of numbers on him. Obviously his name, his flag. He's a 1-star general, so he's a brigade general or brigadier in I think English terms, but they call them brigade generals or brigadier generals in America. Again, his color bar showing who he's in charge of. And then you've got 3 ratings down the side there for him. And they go down, starting at the top there, the N is action profile. And there are, I think it's 4 different action profiles that they could have. There is aggressive, which would be an A. N for normal, so Gladden is normal. C for cautious, and U for unreliable. Now, these only come into effect when you actually try to activate, change their orders by themselves. So if they try and change their orders by themselves and they get a specific result called loose cannon, they could, if they roll to see, well, if they're aggressive, they must move towards the enemy. If they're normal, they're fine. You don't have to worry about them. Cautious, they have to move away from the enemy. And unreliable, and you make a die roll to see what they actually do. Do they become aggressive? Do they become cautious? Or do they remain normal? So that's what that first number, or sorry, letter means. Then the number in the black circle is command range in movement points, not hexes. So yes, 4 is not great for movement points, considering this kind of terrain that we're going through. And then the last one is his orders rating. This is a die roll used whenever the brigade wishes to change his orders as needed. Again, positive numbers is good. So in other words, he'll be quite susceptible to be able to change his orders. Whereas you look at Chalmers down here has got a 0, and you'll find that some other guys have negative numbers. So Gladden is not a bad bloke. Command range isn't great, but you wouldn't expect that in a brigade commander. So that's what's on the counters. Now let's have a look what we're actually going to try to achieve with this guy. The ultimate aim for the Army of Tennessee is to hold this ground, and for the Army of the Mississippi to take it and drive the Army of Tennessee, which is the Northern Army, back into the river or off the map. However, to negotiate that, there are these. So one of the comments of the previous episode is, isn't that a bit artificial? I suppose so, because they weren't saying, oh, on the map, or they're setting the tactical plans, we've got to capture Spain's field by 8 a.m. What they were saying is we've got to push, 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 and I think it's to get as much damage whilst these Union are unprepared, and I think they're using that to represent it. So that's going to be, as you can see, it's quite a distance to go, and that's got to be captured, that whole field, by 8 a.m. Otherwise the Union get 5 victory points. As long as there's a Confederate unit in that field by the end of the 8 a.m. turn, so we've got 3 turns, as long as there's a Confederate unit in there, then it denies it from the Union. If the Confederates manage to take the whole field, as in there's no Union in the field, then they will gain 5 victory points. And then there's a few more for the 9 a.m. turn, and there's a few more beyond that. But let's just focus on that at the present moment. So it's 5 victory points doesn't sound a lot, but when we're talking swings and roundabouts of max, for a victory, and again, this was explained in the previous episode, that the Confederates need 21 for a marginal victory, 21 more than what the Union have got, because whatever the Union got gets subtracted from the Confederates. So it's a net gain of 21, and that's 5 sitting in there. And if the Union get it, makes it that a little bit more harder. So that's the target. That's the objective. Push, push, push as much as possible. There's going to be no loitering with intent. So Gladden is under advance orders. There are 3 different types of orders which have certain restrictions on them. We'll go through as and when that happens, but there's advance, attack, and march. Now, we can't be in march orders until at least 8 a.m., so that's not going to happen. But advance and attack, what's the best one? Think of advance, if you know your Napoleonics, the troops are running like columns. It's quicker moving, but they can't go into or adjacent to an enemy unit. Whereas attack, think of it as a battle line. They're slower, but they can go next to, well, an attack order gives it away. Now, when you're under advance orders, again, there's certain restrictions. You can either move or fire. When you're under attack orders, you can move and fire. So there's also stacking limits differences and such forth. So you can move adjacent to it, doesn't matter. Anyway, activation is normal. Stacking limit is 15 strength points. Remember, you got the inner hex. And may it fire under advance orders? Yes, but it can't move and fire. Well, there's nothing to fire at anyway. So under advance orders, with that in mind, if I wanted to change their orders, I could have done that in that previous step. I'll just go back to the sequence of play to show you. If we were, when the change orders phase, I could have changed them to attack orders there. But I didn't. We're doing them under advance. And I've got to keep the continuous line at the end, or by the end, of Hindman's whole activation, which is all these brigades. So I'm only going to do Gladden's brigade in this video because we've done a lot of talk about units and such forth. I said I don't want them to be too long. So let's move them. Now, these woods are 1.5 movement points per hex. And then we'll be going down slopes, which, and depends on how many contours are in a hex. It makes it either a gradual slope, minor slope, or a steep slope. Going down these slopes makes no change. Then you've got this little dotted blue line, which is called a run. And I'm putting this here on the side here. I don't know if you guys will be able to make it out at this distance. I mean, I could zoom out a bit more, but then it starts filling up the map. So, but it's a run which has no effect other than it's on the map and looks pretty. And then we've got this here, which I believe is that a creek or a stream? That's a good question. It's not impassable. Is that a creek or a stream? Remembering that creeks are only passable by bridges and fords, and looking at it over here, that's a stream. So crossing a stream is an additional +1, unless it's artillery. Okay, so that we've got that far. So we need to remember we've got to get continuous front. So when this brigade gets to go, which will be probably the next one in the next video, the units must be adjacent. So 1.5 movement points each. So that would be 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6. 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6. Be mindful. Now, this is, again, one of the advantages of Battle is I can get really zoomed out. When you're actually playing with a physical board, it's like using your glasses and such forth, trying to work out, and also you can't remove the units. It is difficult to see the terrain. Because notice on here, this hex, it's got that shaded lines there, which is a sloping hex side, which costs an extra movement point to go across, either up or down, only if you're not paying any cost. So moving down from here to here would be 2.5 movement points. So I want to avoid that, because we went through it there. So that will actually be 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6. So he went a slightly different route then. Okay, he went from there to there to there to get there. 1.5, 3, 4.5, 6. 1.5, 3, 4.5, but one extra for that slope, 5.5. Okay, so this guy is going to be going 1.5 plus 1 for the slope there is 2.5, and then 1.5. Sorry, 1.5. That's 2.5. That's 5.5. Basic adding up here. Okay, so it's 1.5 plus 1 is 2.5. That's also 2.5. That's a total of 5. So he hasn't got enough to get into there. Got there in the end. Okay, how many movement points? Notice there's no movement points does the commander have on him? Brigade and divisional leaders have an inherent movement point of 10 that's not written on the counter. And they have a separate column for leader movement points. Notice also there is a trail here, or I think they call it on this one a farm lane. So we have a road, which is here, and a farm lane. Okay, so Gladden needs to keep all these guys within command range. He's got a command range of 4. This is where it's a little bit, this is one of the special rules of the game, that their command range is measured in, use 1 movement point per hex for tracing command on roads, rather than half, which is on the charts. Okay. All leaders use 1 movement point for farm lanes, and all leaders trace command through woods at 2 movement points, rather than the 1.5. Because this is showing that most of these commanders didn't have a staff with them. And also it's use regular leader movement costs for command range and all other terrain. So roads and woods are a little bit more expensive. And it says, command at Shiloh was difficult with many units acting on their own. Moving through the woods was easier than keeping your command in the woods. Additionally, many leaders had not had time to create a proper staff. So, yeah. So we need to move him up. And moving through the woods for a leader is 1.5, but command is 2. So he's going to go. And moving on the actual row, farm lane is 1. So that's 1, 2. Plus 1.5 is 3.5. Plus 1.5 is 5. And we'll put in there. Okay. Now the artillery. Now, artillery, and this is going to be a little bit ponderous, especially going over ridges and slopes and such forth. But we need this battery does belong to him. It's attached to him. So we want to keep them up. There's no limbered or unlimbered side. So if I just flip that over, that's his disordered side. So guns can fire in the same turn that they're activated. You just get modifiers for it. So each of these turns is an hour long. Each of these activations is approximately 15 minutes. So anyway, artillery moving along that farm lane is, well, it says half other terrain in hex, minimum 1 movement point. And it's got a little code there, which I can't read with one set of glasses, but can with the other. It says little N. See rules for artillery on trails. Okay. Okay. So it's half the terrain cost in the hex. So artillery would normally pay 3/4. So that's 1.5. That's 1.5, 3, and then 6. That's as far as it gets. And then I leave the advance marker near him to remind us that he's under advance orders. And then I'm going to put a little marker on him to show he's had an activation. Why, you ask? Well, it's an aide mamma, because if he has more than, I know you can only have a maximum of 3, but I'm going to stick that near him or on him. Near him will do. Show that he's had, oh, I see, they clicked to the, there we go. So he's had 1 activation. Then I'll clear all the move markers out the way. And that's that brigade done. Now I'll move on to a different brigade, but that'll be in the next video. Hey, so let's go back up to my lovely face and end this video with a little jibber jabber. Okay, we've got a brigade moving. There's quite a lot of little rules that we've got to go through, obviously the system rules and specific rules. I'm not going to do that for every video. I'm not going to do that for every brigade, but where it's important, I will do so. And that's all I've got to say. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, you know what to do. If you really enjoyed it, please subscribe to the channel. It all helps. And any comments will be much appreciated. And again, if I missed something, did something wrong, think I could have done better, let me know. Any comment, positive or negative, helps me grow, helps me learn, and so on. But until next time, play games, have fun, and bye, Internet.